this SHOKY Transformers review, we're going to take a look at something new that I didn't quite realize I needed. An outer space Jeep. That's right. Today we're taking a look at the new Takara Generations Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Trilogy HOUND. Let's get to it. First and foremost, packaging. Because you gotta. And of course it is the new weird rhombus or trapezoid shaped box. Not sure why they went with this, but I guess it's better than standard blister packs we've gotten for years. So it's pretty neat. Of course, Takara, which is probably why things are a little bit nicer than they are. And you got Generations in War for Cybertron Siege Trilogy. It's all about the trilogies, baby. Hasbro label, age A+. Hey, I'm right in the middle of that. And you got the cool background inside there in the plastic prison with the weird sword-looking emblem. And, of course, the red, which I assume denotes that it is an Autobot. I don't have a Decepticon yet to determine if that's the thing, so we'll check that out. We've got a nice image of Hound over here. I really love the artwork that they're putting into these. Although the glow of the burning Energon, if I had to guess, kind of gives them a purplish reflection in a way. And something that may or may not be missing from the figure, we'll take a closer look at it. The classic Hound yellow stripes around the arms. I'm not entirely certain are there, but we do have Deluxe class, Classe Deluxe, Classe de Lujo, or Classe, it's Classe, that's Classe Deluxe. That's pretty neat there. Stuff on the bottom, nobody cares. This side, you have all the people in this particular wave situation going on here. Some very nice artwork. I really do dig that. And of course you come to the back, and you've got Hound in robot mode. One thing that is silly about these things, they completely get rid of descriptions, even though they had like a one-line descriptor for Power of the Prime stuff. There's none at all for these. And by the way, it is the WFC S9. Yay for that. And you got him holding a Battle Master right there. So this is where I was getting confused with Battle Masters versus Micromasters. So Battle Masters directly turn into weapons and not much else, whereas the Micromasters have bot mode, vehicle mode, and weapon mode, which we'll be looking at in the next review. And yeah, so he's holding the sword one there, and there says Battle Master WFCS2 and WFCS3, and once again they come with cool effects. So you got like the swishy, and then you've got the shooty effect there, and you got 14 steps to get him to his Space Jeep mode, because really there's not a whole better there's not really a better description for that. So, and choose your weapons loadout, blah 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 blah, all the things like that. So that's it for the box. So let's go ahead and get Mr. Space GP Houndy boy out here. Guys, first and foremost, before we get to the Hound, technically it's not first, it's second and foremost, you got the instructions. Nice drawn image of Hound there. Actually very G1-y looking head. You've got some spoogy stuff happening there. That sounded way worse than I thought. Sorry. Autobot Hound, Transformers, Siege. And you open it up. And very nice instructions. First, they always tell you the weapons and stuff first. I guess that's cool. And you got, hey, it can shove onto his arm. And then you got all the decent instructions. Now, one thing that's funny, I was trying to transform this guy without looking at the instructions at all while I was talking to Josh Fisher on the Nerdcast the other day, which, you know, bing, right up in here. Hopefully I'll remember to add that. And, yeah, so I want to look at the back here. Okay. So we've got all the different Battle Masters where you can plug stuff. You got holding weapons here. You've got, hold on, R10. It's an IR electroscope launcher. So you need to shoot electroscopes at people. And you got the hollow beam reflection. You can read, right? I like that it gives you different specs on just the weapons, not him in general. So that's interesting. And no character cards anymore, which I guess is fine, but they've carried it on for so long now, it's weird that this is like your character card. So toss that aside, and we come down to the green boy. And there we got Hound in his vehicle mode. So Space Jeep. I will say that this is my least favorite thing of this character, to be totally honest. While it's cool and definitely has a Warthog vibe from Halo, it's very busy and very gappy and kind of hollow. And the green is kind of muddled in with the grays. And this bronze color, I don't dig it as much. I think that if they had gone with yellow, instead of bronze, which is what I was talking about with his original G1 self, it would be a little bit better. Now, I do have the weapons mounted up here, like you do, because he normally had like a cool weapon mount in the back. He does actually have some molded in seats right in there, which is pretty neat, except for the fact there's no humans on this planet. Why do they need seats? You've got all this stuff happening in the back. You've got a little weapons drum here, gun, molded wheels that are painted green, I think. I can't tell if the green is painted or the black is painted, probably the green. You have complete visible arm syndrome underneath, so that's a thing. He does have a translucent windshield that is mostly blocked by other stuff, so kind of a pointless windshield. White painted main headlights and secondary fog lights, and some more fog lights that are nicely painted yellow, and then all the nice scraped up battle damagey dry brushing that they sort of went with. Why is my focus not happening? Where are you focusing, camera? There we go. I don't know why, it doesn't like to focus on Transformers. And you got some more lights out here, so he's got all the lights, even tail lights and turn signals, just to be nice on Cybertron when you're driving around, so the other people who are following you, like Decepticons, will know what direction you're going. That's always handy, right? Right. So, quick comparisons for this mode. There's Sideswiper. So he's much shorter than Sideswipe as a thing, but I guess the Jeep is probably a little bit smaller than a Space Lamborghini. So Space Jeep, Space Lamborghini. Looks really good. By the way, I forgot to point out the fact he has the giant Tampergraph Autobot logo there. And here he is with a previous Deluxe with Jazz. I kind of hope we get a new Jazz. I was not a big fan of this particular version. Also, having Cybertronian forms is pretty cool to some degree. Since that is almost not visible, let's bring in a Masterpiece car so you can see the size comparison there, which is a bit different. And here he is with G1 Hot Rod. So it's pretty good. Now this is in fact my only version of Hound I've ever had, so I can't compare him to anything else, sadly. Though I kind of want the Generations Hound. I think that is a very nice updated version. Something about this really reminds me of the Combiner Wars version. I know it's definitely not the same type of vehicle, but it still has some of that very busy, clustery feel to it. I don't know. Something about this little armored Jeep vehicle kind of annoys me. And I think one problem I have for sure is the arms hanging out the bottom. Not only are they visible, and yes, I could turn the hands and be a little bit less. There was nowhere better to put them. They're just, oh, by the way, visible head syndrome too, if you're really looking. He kind of loses all his ground clearance by having that just hanging out right there. I almost would have rathered them like fold in the back, like inside, instead of having a see-through Jeep, like give us the Hummer style that we've had before for other characters, where the arms could at least have somewhere to hide. Personally, I would have dug that. Instead of folding inward, I think it would have been nicer to have them fold inside the vehicle and maybe even up underneath. This would have been cooler. It's not physically doable with it as it exists, but that would have been a decent kind of upgrade, I think, or a different kind of alternative, because he is just full of gappiness and stuff, and I guess he's a vehicle, but I mean the front end mold is very nice. Even the back end is actually pretty good. Weapons are pretty good, but it just kind of lets me down on the looks department otherwise as a vehicle. Just not that cool. Also, seriously, why is there a passenger compartment? Nobody's driving around with them. So, alright, let's move on to transformation. So let's go ahead and yank off the weapons, because we don't need those. No big deal there. And when it comes down to the base, just pop the arms loose. There's a couple little tabs right inside there. Just plug into the forearms. And this guy has a very different kind of transformation, and this is why I got really confused. Okay, so prying these things off, you just gotta be careful. So it has this ginormous box tab kind of here on that edge. Go ahead and pull these out just for clearance sake. I'm going to come to the back here and just flip this up so that you have room to maneuver. Go ahead and get your arms out of the way just a little bit more. And all of this needs to come down And, oh, sorry, I forgot to untab the knees. Come down here, rotate outward, rotate outward, like so. And then we'll go ahead and finish up the legs while we're here. So this is actually a neat transformation, but weird at the same time. So you got hinge here, just swing this around. You've got a post here, a slot there. Oh, duh, I forgot toes. Fold down your toes, then rotate that up and over. Oh, I'm going for the wrong post. My bad. And you'll see one problem that we're going to have with that later. Then flip your toes back down, make your life easier, so that you're not fighting something you're not supposed to be fighting. And then rotate your foot to be flat. That's generally how you should do that. Come up to the arms. Go ahead and fold these out. Go a little bit wide with them, because you're going to need to. And then you're going to flip the entire thing down. Hold on, I can't see. Going to grab your entire front end and your back end and flip it around. In the meantime, flip this guy up and in, and it does tab in right there, so that's nice. And chest comes down, backpack comes down, tabs in kind of back there-ish. Doesn't have to stay totally. Push this a little bit back there. Straighten out your arms. And there you go. There's your little houndy boy. And then, oh, sorry, I always forget this. These tab back in. That's why you have to have these shoulders spread a little wide so they'll tab in right there. And so we got Hound in his robot mode. So in robot mode, Hound does have a very G1-esque look to him, although once again, looks very, very busy, and I think part of that comes down to this dry brushing. One, it's incredibly heavy-handed here. That's not dry brushing anymore. That may as well have been a silver part with some black dry brushing instead. You know, they're going for some dry brushing slash chipping, and they're overdoing it. Same thing down here on the legs. Those are really, really beat up, considering that those are the top side of the vehicle. The sides would have made sense. The feet would have made sense. Also, they're weathering things to how they are, I think, in vehicle mode, not in robot mode. So, like with our friend Sideswipe, for instance, all the damage and the stuff is underneath. It's on the bottom side. And of course, his body, he wants to be clean all the time. But in robot mode, it's his crotch and his legs. That's it, nothing else. And of course, like this, it's his chest guard, so to speak, and his legs. It's a little weird. Totally honest, it's very strange. I do believe that this can come off without having to use anything like super strong. I think some alcohol can get it off. I have some decent thinner that should be able to do it, hopefully without melting any plastic. But I'll try the alcohol approach as well, because I would really love to dry brush these and weather them up myself. Now, of course, we don't really gain anything new, but we do see the stars on the shoulders here that are a Hound thing. You gotta have that. And this is where I was talking about the bronzish color here, or the copper color, instead of the classic yellow. It does bother me. I want it to be yellow because it's Hound. I mean, I get that it's a little bit more military to have it with a bronze. Like even the bronze star there isn't bad, though I think it should be a white star, not a bronze one. And then even these parts here, it is what it is. Like maybe it's just the forearms. Leave the rest of it bronze. Something. And then, once again, maybe some silver paint on the legs, because they do get some silver paint and some blue eyes there on the head. And the head is very G1-esque. Gotta love that. Doesn't really move. It's kind of on a ball joint, I guess. So you can rotate. It's either a ball joint or just a disc kind of thing. It's hard to tell. Doesn't have any other movement there. That sucks. Shoulders, very similar. So up and down, rotate. And with the bicep swivel and stuff, you can get a high teacher, more or less. Everything is very stiff there. It is still a very new toy, so hopefully it loosens up a little bit. And I also don't like how this is flexing so much. But I guess they're making them out of slightly softer plastic, so hopefully they don't just break on you. Single jointed elbow, get you 90 degrees, no big deal. We already saw bicep rotation. The hands do rotate, and I guess Are they painted or are they just molded in a flat plastic? Hard to tell, but decently flat. You do get waist rotation. I did think that that was part of the transformation. It totally isn't. So that was one confusing thing with trying to transform this guy, was I thought that he needed that for transformation, but he doesn't. They just gave you waist rotation, which is great. Now you do have hips that are almost exactly the same as they are on Sideswipe, but I have one problem. This thigh rotation does not work. It is totally stuck. You can see there. This one rotates fine. This one doesn't, and I'm scared to twist it because I'm scared that the peg for the rest of the hip will completely shatter. So I might have to disassemble these hips and break it down to its components and then try to get that loose. The plastic is likely just stuck, and I need to like get something in there to maybe oil it or something and see if I can break that loose, because his thigh does not rotate and it really kind of hinders a lot. But you can get a very nice Jean-Claude if the arms are not in the way, like so. And then of course he can do the full Monty. You can do the splits. And he's got 4 wheels on the backs of his legs, which is a little bit funny if I'm honest. Almost would have been worth rotating them inward somehow, but probably would be in the way of the knee, which gets you 90 degrees where it kind of just hits. That's about it. Very nice. No cool hideaway thing like we got with Sideswipe, but you gotta do what you gotta do. As we saw with the ankles, you do get an ankle rocker, although it is detented, so you can get a wide stance, like, but not a varied stance. But it just sort of does what it does, however. But, you know, so I mean, he works. Now he does have weapons. I almost forgot about them, to be totally honest. So you've got his whatever this gun is. Ridiculous named gun. Looks very nice. Got some copper, got some silver. Molded really decently. Once again, where's my focus trying to be? And I plugged this one in on his shoulder, so you get the classic over-the-shoulder thing. It would have been neat to have it like back here, but it is what it is. It still works for that. If you guys noticed, the G1 cast, a lot of them had over-the-shoulder weapons. Now you've got his more machine gun laser rifle type deal, and you've got the drum here, which does plug in right here if you want to do it. I dig this. I dig this a lot. It's very reminiscent also of his G1 mounted weapon, and you can hold it very nicely, very, very easily. And now he does have ports all over the place, so you can plug in other Battle Masters, Micro Masters, or even a certain Transformer who blows apart into armor that I don't have. But it is what it is. Another cool thing you can do with this weapon, you can make it into like a big, like Mega Buster type weapon. Pull that off. Plug this one into that one. Plug the barrel thingy on the end, like so. And now you have a really big over-the-shoulder cannon, if you're down for that sort of thing, which is neat. Don't get me wrong. Scared about that hip, because like I can only really pose him to the left side. That's the way he works. All right, let's go jump over to some comparisons real quick. So for comparisons, we'll bring in G1 reissue Hot Rod. It's definitely taller, but you know, they weren't adhering to any scale back then, of course. Bring in previous generation Jazz, who is taller, but I guess if he wasn't in A stance, he might be close. And then Sideswipe, who he's just barely taller than, but mostly the same size. So I guess that's a pretty decent thing. And then comparing to DX9 Dutch and Wally. But all in all, guys, final thoughts wise, it's a cool figure. Definitely one that's going to stay in bot mode, though. I'm not a fan of the Space Jeep just not that cool. And I feel like they missed the mark a little bit on some of his detailing, like the lack of the yellow stripe on the arms, even though it's clearly on the packaging, stuff like that. I like the weapons combining gimmick. I like that it's very similar to a drum-style machine gun. The weathering, once again, while, you know, they put in a decent effort, it doesn't totally work. So I do want to dry brush these myself, which I'll probably be doing later. He's a much bulkier figure than his friend Sideswipe, who is actually a very, you know, svelte and skinny, whereas he's very big and bulky. Of course, being a sports car versus a SUV type deal is what it is. Lacking a tiny bit in some of the articulation. Maybe that's down to the fact that this hip doesn't want to spin. Not sure, but would have liked a little more articulation for the head, maybe a hinge, just so it can move up and out. Other than that, it's pretty cool. It has an interesting transformation, the way the legs come around to form the sides of the body. Stuff like that. I kind of dig that. It's actually one of my more favorite parts of this guy. Other than that, it's a fine version of Hound. So if you don't have a Hound, by all means, this is not a bad one. And if you're going to get Siege Line, I am liking what they're doing so far, but there's still plenty to go that we may or may not have problems with in the future. But if you do like this guy, if you're actually collecting these, let me know down below. And of course, hit that big thumbs up button if you like this review. And go ahead and hit that subscribe-ish button right over there if you are new here to the channel. And if you guys are noticing, I'm doing a lot more Transformers videos right now. Well, that's because I have new Transformers to look at. Why not? And of course, I am definitely digging where everything is going in the future. But guys, I will catch you on the next review. And remember, as always, to keep on nerding.